That looks like a nice setup.
Yeah, getting there, man. I'm been working on it for a while, and I'm doing a soft opening this week. So
Oh, you're not even open
going.
yet.
Well, I'm open this week, and then I'm doing a grand opening next week. So
What does that mean when you're doing a soft opening? Because I've watched Bar Rescue, obviously, a
yeah,
few times.
I don't know. I'm kind of making this all up as I go, but for us, it's friends and family, like
Yeah.
invite only. So we're not. It's like a lower pressure environment to crawl, walk, run, to use Marine Corps isms and just experience problems in a lower pressure environment instead of like, hey, we're open to everyone and their mom to come and watch me fail. So this is just like everybody
Yeah.
knows we're still learning how to make the food and the beer. We're still tweaking carbonation or whatever it might be. So
Smoothing out all the glitches.
yeah, in theory. So
When's the full opening go?
my plan is this upcoming Monday,
Oh wow, okay.
which is coming up. Yeah, but I'm kind of worried I'll run out of beer. I've only got 4 beers on tap right now, and I've got other ones fermenting. But my buddies who have breweries are like, dude, you're gonna get drank dry then you have to close down until you re-inventory. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. I want to open, but I don't want to shoot myself in the foot like right out the gate.
How
So
long's it? How long does it take to get another batch going so everything's ready to go?
from like you spend a good day brewing, like it's a 6-hour deal to kind of go from grain to a liquid, and then it ferments. The beers ferment for about 9 days with the yeast I'm using,
Okay.
and then you carbonate it for like a day. So it's about 12 days on the fast end from grain to glass.
So if you were gonna slide right, what would you do? Slide like a week or so?
I think a week, yeah, which in the grand scheme of life doesn't seem like a huge deal. I've had this lease for like 23 months. I've been working on this.
Oh wow.
Like just everything from construction to like every light bulb, every 2x4, every piece of drywall, every fastener, screw, light switch, all the brewing equipment pieced together. And like, I'm so ready to just turn the on switch on.
Yeah.
But again, I'm like, okay, one more week, if I can have 3 more beers on, like that'll be worth it. So I got to make that call later today, I guess. Figure it
Yeah.
out.
For sure. That's you definitely don't want to run out. That would suck if you were like have a really good opening and like that kind of kills the momentum right off the bat,
Yeah, that's
you
what I'm thinking.
definitely don't want something like that. 23 months, man. So how does that work when you lease out a commercial? Well, we're already started. Normally I talk for a little, I have a little conversation before we get going, but we might as well use this for the podcast. So do you want to tell us what your brewery is called, and then we'll get into that a little bit before we talk about your military stuff?
Sure, yeah. Big Trouble Brewing Company. Yeah, I'm in Gallatin, Tennessee, just a suburb north of Nashville.
Yeah.
About 30 minutes north. I'm just getting started. So I've been working on planning it for quite a while and executing the plan, and now I'm at the point of that process where the next thing is to open up and sell some beer. So my model is really, it's more of tap room focus. Like I want to make the beer here, and I want to sell it here, at least for starters.
Yeah.
I'm not really in the distribution game right now. My system, when I brew one batch, I'll make like, in breweries, they're sized in barrels. So one barrel is 2 big kegs worth. So I can make a 7-barrel batch, meaning every time I brew, it's 14 kegs worth, which is like about 220 gallons of beer. So it's, several thousand pints I'm brewing at a time, but it's not really enough to supply the state of Tennessee. And I don't have the logistics for that yet or anything.
Yeah.
But so the model is it's a tap room. It's a local place to come get locally made beer for my community. There's a lot of breweries in Nashville. There's none up here. So I was like, it seemed like a good opportunity, and I wanted to do it.
That's awesome, man. I actually have, or I don't know if I still do, but I had family in Gallatin, Tennessee.
No way.
Yeah, I've been there many times. Yeah, on my mom's side, my mom's side of the family, we're all hillbillies. We're all rednecks and stuff from Tennessee, and I think her mom was born in Alabama or something like that. And I actually grew up in all the way up until high school. I started high school in Indiana, but I grew up in Tennessee in Chattanooga. And
oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm kind of from all over. I tell people I'm from Indiana because I was born in Indiana, and then we moved to Tennessee. But yeah, dude, Gallatin, that whole area, you're probably feeling some of the side effects of everybody rushing to Nashville, right?
Yeah, it's the infection is spreading in terms of both good and bad. I mean, we're getting more businesses, more traffic, housing prices are jumping. I mean, it is what it is. Like, you can't stop that. So it's been, I mean, a lot of the people in the city, in the business community, like, they're all about it. The Chamber of Commerce, the mayor, everybody's cheerleading it on. But like a lot of regular people are just like kind of ticked. But it's nowhere near as bad as Nashville.
Yeah,
In terms of like how many humans are in per square mile now. I don't know that metric, but
for sure.
it's gotten busier. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good though. I mean, it sounds like you got in at a good time though. You know, like if you're getting ready to open, everything's kind of reopening now. People are moving to Nashville, and like maybe you'll get more foot traffic from that. So that'll be. I mean, I get it. Like people don't want their way of life to change. You know, especially when you have it really good. When you're like, man, I have a nice community. You know, it's safe. There's no real issues. And then you have a lot of outsiders, I guess, move in that kind of change. They have different driving patterns. They have different ways of just everything, you know. People in California are crazy, man. It took me a long time to stop saying good morning or something to people as I walk by them. You know, because I'm from Indiana, a small town in Indiana, from Lafayette, which is kind of small. But you're used to, like, greeting people and saying hi to people. And in the military, in the Marine Corps, obviously. So out here, though, no one wants to fucking even make eye contact with you. It's like if you say something to someone as you walk by them, they're like, "What the hell, like weirdo."
Wait, where are you now? It cut out a little bit.
Oh, I'm in San Diego now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I got out at Camp Pendleton and I stayed here and went to SDSU and stuff. And I'm in this limbo period where I'm like trying to figure out if I'm going to go back to Indiana or if I'm going to stay out here. So, you know.
Yeah, I feel like most people of your cloth tend to be fleeing that state. It seems like
it's just, you know, it's a beautiful state and it's got so much, so many amazing things. I can go to the beach or the mountain or the desert or all three in the same day, you know, and it's hard to beat something like that. But the policies of the politicians and stuff, I mean, it's weird. The other day, I live right outside the actual city. I'm like right outside of it in City Heights, which is kind of a shittier neighborhood probably in San Diego. And when you drive into the city, you literally, like, the first thing that hits you is the smell of piss. You know what I'm saying? And then that's just like, okay, well, that little wall of smell of urine gets past you. Then you go find parking if you can somewhere and go walk. I get up in the mornings and stuff a lot of times because I do photography and go walk through the city and shoot photos of homeless people, of sunrises, of boats, of whatever. And so I get a different kind of viewpoint than some people that don't go out and kind of see stuff. But there's some really bad spots where the homeless people have just taken. There was an area where I was like, I'm going to go shoot photos here because I know it's full of homeless people and I want to get that perspective. I want to, let people see that. Dude, I pulled up there and I'm like, I'm not getting out of my car. I was getting eyeballed from like 20 dudes. I'm like, yeah, like 20 homeless guys are all set up like this whole tent encampment. And it was like, this isn't safe, you know, and that's saying something, you know, here in San Diego. So,
yeah.
But yeah, craft beer, man. I love going. It's San Diego, so it's like the mecca of breweries and stuff. Did you start out as like a garage brewer guy, you know, in your neighborhood, and then kind of built up from there?
I first started like, I guess it was in college, you know, kind of classic story. A lot of people mess around with that kind of stuff. Try to get some cheaper free beer by making it yourself. But I made a few batches. I don't know, a while ago. This was probably like 2008, I think. And it's 5 gallon, you know, so you get a little glass, like they call them carboys. They, you know, get water, grain, yeast, throw it in there, see what happens. And I just did that off and on for you know, until now. And that's what I started off just doing that. But it never was like, I didn't do it like every day or every week I have a new one. It was just kind of something I did, you know, maybe 5-10 times a year, depending on what I was doing in my life. But I always liked doing it. I've always enjoyed craft beer as a consumer. I like the culture. I mean, I'm not into like the crazy mustaches and like tasting. I'm not good at tasting beer, man. Like when like notes, I either like something or I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I know guys will come in and they're like, oh yeah, I'm picking up like buttercup, whatever, and I'm just like, yeah, good.
Cool, man.
That's totally what I was going for, But I'm just like, I either like it or I don't. And I know like I got a lot to learn on that end, I guess, to be legit. But right now I'm just trying to follow a process. I mean, keeping stuff clean is really half the battle. Like I look at brewing like cooking. Anybody can cook. It's just about following directions, doing the process. And in brewing, it's no different, except your methods have to include sanitation, like before and after.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's like free food, it's like 200 gallons of sugar water for any microbe or wild yeast or fungus. And so like a speck of something gets in there, you're going to lose the batch. Ask me how I know. My first batch I had to dump, and it was like so depressing.
Oh man.
But so like that's, I mean, anybody can do it, I think. I mean, if I can do it, for sure anybody can do it. But it's fun. I really enjoy it. I've got like 4 I brought so I've never done anything at this scale until I did. Mm-hmm. So I was doing like I said, 5, 10 gallon batches. I did a little bit of training down in Colorado a couple years ago. And then I just started piecing this system together and kind of learning as I go. And it's been a wild ride, man. Not just on the brewing side, but the storefront, like the retail brick and mortar business side, permitting, codes. Like it's just been challenge after challenge in these domains that I'm not familiar with, and just having to, learn on the fly.
Plus living in the unknown for the last year and a half, not even knowing when you could even open your store up, right?
That's true.
Because you probably, what'd you do? You signed your lease and then a couple months later the pandemic hit?
Yeah, I signed the lease in like September of 19. And, I knew build out would take a little while. And so there were some self-inflicted wounds of just things I didn't know, or questions I didn't know to ask. Like I was told I was going to do all the work myself, and I did everything I could, but the codes department, like you have to get an architect has to make your plans, stamp them, they submit them to your city, the city approves the plans, and then you have to get a permit. So you have like this macro level permit, which is the building permit, and then under that, first you have to get that one, and once you get that one, then you get your subcontractor permits, like plumbing, electrical, mechanical, and all those permits have inspections, like rough-in, final inspections. So it's pretty laborious in terms of like who's who in the zoo and who needs to come look at what and when and what are they going to say. But what I was told was like, hey, if your build-out's going to be like under like 30 grand for like the non-plumbing, non-specific trade work, like drywall, framing, demo, if you're under 30 for that, then you don't need a permit. Just you can pull it yourself. You don't need a contractor. I was like, oh, sweet. So I go to pull the permit, and this is a couple months later, and they're like, oh, you have to have a general contractor pull this. And I'm like, that's not what the head of codes told me in this email right here. They're like, oh, well, that guy retired, and it's changed now.
Oh,
so I'm
what?
going on this wild, dude, I know. I'm on this wild goose chase to find a general contractor who's willing to accept the liability of the job, but not actually do the work. But I'm just going to pay you to get a piece of paper from the city and bring it to my building. That's all I needed. And they all wanted to charge like 6 figures, and like it's just insane.
That's crazy, dude.
I was hunting for, and I know guys that it was a commercial permit, so you had to have a commercial license in Tennessee. So I'm like, I know guys who have residential, and I'm trying to find people with the right license to pull this magic piece of paper before I'm allowed to do anything.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I'm actually doing stuff in here. I'm just not, I'm not getting it inspected until I get the permit, but I'm trying to,
do what you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, so that was a big delay. Finally found a company who was willing to do it. And then I started to get the ball rolling, but then you run into issues with subcontractors, like not showing up, or, it just,
general stuff.
A whole litany. Yeah. Just life, and then there was some, COVID stuff, or like supply line shortages, labor shortages.
Prices skyrocketed for stuff too, right?
When I started, like a 2x4 was like, I don't know, like $450, and then by the end, I mean, they're like I don't know, $9-11. Like, it depends on the week. They've kind of gone down now, but I'm done with, you know, God willing, I'm done with all the construction now. But
yeah. What kind of
yeah,
resources are you using? Any kind of veteran resources to like make this all come to fruition that people should know about?
I wish I was. Well,
SBA or anything like that? Like,
indirectly, I refied my home with a VA loan.
okay.
And that freed up some working capital, if we will. So that is if you're a vet and you don't have a VA loan, I would definitely check out getting refinanced. I dropped my rate from like 4.7 to like 2.2, I think.
Yeah, it's real
and that
low.
alone saved me like $600 a month in interest. It's crazy. So that was just a huge boon to give me some flexibility and breathing room. Because no, I don't have a loan. I used to live in Nashville, like downtown, East Nashville, and right before our deployment, I had just had my second child, and we were kind of outgrowing this house. It was like a house built in the 40s. It was 2-bedroom, but then there was like a 3rd bedroom on the attic, and my kids were like young, and it's not really safe to go up there. You know, I mean, they converted it to a bedroom, but it wasn't like, with kids that young, they need to be on the same level as mom and dad.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of stairs. But so anyway, and my wife's family lived up here in Gallatin, and I was about to be gone for 14, 15 months. So we needed a new house. She wanted to be closer to her family while I was deployed. And so we bought a house up here, but I bought that house in East Nashville, like in 2013 or 14, got a really good deal on it, and it appreciated a lot. And I flipped it. I did a lot to it, but so we made a good little chunk of change from that house. And I was able to convince my wife to let me use that for this stupid dream of mine. And
that's crazy, man.
That's where, so it was really good timing. I mean, we put a lot of work in that house, and then we just happened, and we sold it right before the deployment, and kind of just sat on that money till we got back. I actually had a DEA. I had a school sheet as a DEA, like for when I came home. I was, I'm sure you had guys on 1811 jobs where it's like multi-year application process.
Yeah.
Psych evals and medical and background. So I had done all of that, and they called me for a receipt, and I'm like, well, I'm about to ship out. I'll be back in, whenever. They're like, okay, well, just let us know when you're back. And so I get back, and I'm like a couple months away from coming home, talking to my wife, and she's like, you're going to have to go to FLETC. That's going to be 20 weeks and not home. And then it's a federal job. So we're going to have to move. And we just moved here. The kids are in school now. And then we're, getting established. We're by her family. And then, so she's like, do you really want to do this? And so it's one of those decisions, like, do I want to be that dad, that husband who pulls my family all around, the world or the country, trying to get my rocks off on doing some cool guy stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm framing it in a negative way because I didn't choose that path. I wanted to.
That's exactly it, though. That's exactly it, though. You're not wrong.
A lot of guys did. And, you could also say, a guy that's going to put country before everything, and, his family's going to have to deal with it, and that's my passion, it's my calling, that's what I'm going to do. And I can respect that, but for me, it didn't feel like that. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm not going to do this DEA thing, then I want to do this brewery, for real. And, with her, getting on board mentally with me, it really was like, okay, I was in Afghanistan, writing a business plan and emailing the city people in Gallatin when I was free, and trying to get this thing started, at least get the ball rolling of who do I have to talk to? What do I got to do? So really we haven't really talked about much Marine Corps stuff, but we lost a couple guys on that deployment. It was a Georgian Liaison Team, so it was 60 Marines with a battalion of Georgians, and we were the ANGLICO det. So I know you've had some ANGLICO dudes on here before. So basically we had a small salt, and some of the grunt teams that we were patrolling with, there was 4 different teams, and we would just augment. We had 2 FIC minuses. So it was a JTAC, an RO, and a JFO. Those were our FICs. We had 7 guys to support 4 patrolling teams and a BDOC, or like a JOC basically. And we had to have a JTAC, and the BDOC was Base Defense Operations Center, so it's like a COC. So we had a JTAC in the BDOC at all times, and a JTAC on patrol at all times, and we only had 2 JTACs.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
it was me and my buddy, and dude, and it was just, my beard used to be nice and brown, mustache was dark. Yeah. I like lost a lot of hair, a lot of sleep, and a lot of whatever the pigment giving cell is that makes your hair not be gray.
Yeah.
My body's like, we either can keep this guy alive or turn his hair gray.
It's stressful, man.
So,
it's a stressful world. I think I've told, I've had a few people that are like, man, that'd be so cool to be a JTAC. That's a cool job. And I'm like, it is cool, but it's super stressful sometimes. You know, even stateside or overseas, it can be stressful. That's just the nature of the job. I mean, if it's not stressful, at least a little bit, you're probably in the wrong field, you know, because you need to be, I don't know, a little bit worried about what you're doing at all times, because you're dropping live bombs on stuff and you can't afford to mess that up, you know?
Like, what am I killing? Why? Where's the airplane coming from? Who else is up there? Where are my friends? Where's the ordnance going to hit? Where am I in relation to that? Where are my friends in relation to that? And, like, all those things are dynamic and changing.
Yeah.
Do I still have radio back with these guys? Can I still see the target? Like, just everything.
Yeah, you're just thinking through all that, yeah.
You're not thinking about all those things. You've gotten pigeonholed on one issue, and you've blocked everything else out. So you pretty much should always be, maybe it's stressing. I mean, there's like freaking out anxiety stressing, and there's like just conscious awareness of, you know, it's like having a 4-burner stove, but you have 6 things you're cooking. So you're constantly like checking on these 2, take these off, put these on.
But once you do it a little bit, and you get a rhythm down, you know, and you kind of figure it out, a lot of that stress goes away once you start. Like for me, it was always like stressful, and then I key the mic, and then it's like go time, you know?
Yeah.
Like every time I'd get nervous every time before I keyed the mic, every time, even in training, you know, and it was just like one of those things like, oh man. And in training, I would just be like, especially when I was like the JTAC, I'm like, bro, you're the best dude out here. Like no one else, like who's going to say anything about what you're doing? So why are you nervous? And then just do it. And I don't know, you just have to kind of psych yourself up sometimes, but I don't know. It's just one of those jobs. It's just kind of, there's a lot going on and things shift, and you have to be ready to, like, I always said, so we would send guys to TCP school at 10th Marines, and they would come through our JTAC primer course where me and a couple of the other guys would teach. And you never knew, when you sent some guys to TCP school, you never knew who was going to graduate, or you didn't know from the beginning of the class, like, who's going to make it through this, because someone could be a good, like, forward observer and stuff like that, but they just don't handle the stress very well. You know, they don't handle communicating with the joint JFO, a joint forward observer, or joint fires observer, on the other end of the radio. Like you said, you could be in the COC, the command center is the JTAC. You have a JFO out there doing stuff, passing you information. You got to have some kind of trust that he's giving you the correct information. And then you have to be able to take all that information he's giving you and put it on a map and, like, come up with a plan to kill somebody or do something that's, you know, going to be effective but not detrimental to the mission that's happening. You know, it's it can be stressful for sure. So nothing wrong with that, man.
Hey, it's good, man. Stress.
You got to live on the stress.
It makes you stronger.
Yeah, you got to live on it.
I think Marcus Aurelius said, if something's endurable, then endure it. Otherwise, stop complaining. And it's like, well, okay. Still here.
Real, right?
So, I learned a lot. Obviously, so I'm at 4th ANGLICO, and it's a reserve unit, but they've had quite a bit of operational experience in the last 15 years, pushing out quite a few deaths, mostly to Iraq and Afghanistan, some Syria. But so pretty good knowledge base there of guys who have been around the block. We got several E's, several I, JTAC E's and I's, evaluators and instructors, and you get a really good primer before you go to the schoolhouse there. So I went to the school. I did pretty well, and then, you know, we get in country. Like, you learn, and I think we all get in these habits of, like, backyard OP cast, like, hey, we're just getting a line and kill a target, get whatever code.
Trying to get people's qualifications,
Yeah, and I mean, I like aircraft fuel, time is expensive, ordnance is expensive, all that. Those are limited resources, and there's a lot of guys who have to stay current in order to keep operating. That's just the nature of the beast. But so we did some good stuff on the workup with some full mission profile type training with some ODA teams, which was really good, and some MOA casts, when you're out just in civvies driving around with antennas sticking out of a Suburban and talking airplanes. Yeah, it was fun. But like you learn, it's kind of like company level, like we're looking at targets, we're killing them. We make some orders and some, con ops and, we're following them. But we get in theater and it's like I told you we had 2 FICs and we were attached to a Georgian infantry battalion. And so this battalion is part of Task Force Warrior. Task Force Warrior's job is they have a ground defense area around Bagram and Parwan province. So like the Warrior Task Force Warrior is ran by a Army Lieutenant Colonel. He owns a Georgian battalion, a Czech company, like a Polish company, and then the Marine attachments to the Georgians. So we're with the Marine attachments to the Georgians. But Task Force Warrior doesn't have an air desk. They don't have a fire shop. So guess who becomes the Task Force Air Officer and Task Force Fire Shop? My FIC of 3 dudes. So when we're not patrolling, so we have 2 FICs. One of them is always patrolling for a week. The other FIC, we're running shifts in the COC. On Saturdays, we swap. So the other FIC goes out for a week at daily patrols until the next Saturday. So it was just like balls to the wall, either in, patrolling or doing air assaults or whatever. And then when you're off week, you're in the COC, which is arguably more stressful because you've got the all sorts of assets and PTIDs. You're familiar with those?
Yeah.
They're like those big blimps that go up with all the sensors on them.
Yeah.
And we're at Bagram, which is like the heaviest logistical footprint and thoroughfare for aircraft in that country. And so you've got contract rotors and fixed wing and civilian stuff. Just there's constantly, and so we're defending that ground defense area around Bagram. And well, what happens when you need to release ordnance from the sky and you want it to hit the ground within the vicinity of Bagram, call it 20 clicks around or whatever it might be? Well, airspace becomes an issue.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
When we're at Gulf 10 or whatever range, just shooting you're the only aircraft on station, or you might have a couple other sections and you stack them wherever. But now you've got to deal with like a tower. You got to deal with the guys like on the airfield who have to lock down the gates. You have to deal with other operations going on from other task forces. And I got medevacs coming in because Bagram is like a CAT whatever medical facility for dudes coming in all over. So I'm running a strike and it's like, hey, you want to clear this bird in through whatever? And it's just, we got this plane's low on fuel. They got to come down in the next 30 minutes. And they're like, okay, bring them in on 180, run the attack. It's like crap you never learn or do when you're just running, a coordinated, even the most sexy thing you do really in training is a coordinated attack with a SEAD with maybe a maneuvering ground force. It's kind of about as tough as it gets usually, which is pretty tough. It's not something to shake a stick at, but all of a sudden you've got just at times dozens of non-combat aircraft, and you drop a restricted operating zone or a ROZ where only your aircraft are allowed, but people are dying in helicopters that need to land, or there's also mortar missions. I mean, it was just chaos. So we had to, my chief, he's actually Mike Kozik. I know you. You actually did our shirts for our day. But anyway, Mike's a pilot. He was my sergeant. He was my SALT chief as a sergeant, brand new sergeant. I pinned him on day one for deployment. But he went to OCS and he chose not to commission. His dad is a full bird Harrier pilot, and Mike is a civilian pilot. But he was my chief for the det. So he's like a super sergeant, He's more like a gunny than a sergeant, but he just happens to be a sergeant. But because of his pilot background in civilian world, he's jumping on, talking direct to the tower, and speaking
that language,
in these non-JTAC words about where to route these dudes. So when stuff would hit the fan, I'd be like, all right, I'll run the attack. you handle everything else, and we just put a wall between us, and we would pass whatever information we need. But that was an amazing asset. And then you also run into like, okay, now I've got, like in training, you're on the hill, you got either a map or imagery, see something, kill it. And here I've got like 4 computers. One of them's red, one of them's purple, one of them's green.
Yeah.
This obviously is COC, not out on patrol, and so you've got to like make everyone aware of everything you're doing, and like dropping ROS banners, and you're doing JTARs, like all these weird forms, just all the isms of whatever the ROE and SOPs are at the time that you're just like, you fall into, and you learn that in the RIP when you change out with the unit who preceded you. Hopefully you learn all that stuff. But that stuff was like a fire hose for us, because but the blocking and tackling that you learn, at least at the company level in the Marine Corps, like THCP world, that was enough. That gives you the basics.
Yeah.
And then a lot of other stuff you just got to figure out on the fly. And honestly, the brewery, it hasn't been much different.
That's the way it is, right? I think TCP school and stuff like that gives you that tactical level understanding of being a JTAC and stuff like that. Well, you're talking about like having to route civilian air and all that other stuff. That's when it's nice to have like a CCT come in, because that's their whole thing, is they're basically, a tower dude, but on the ground, and they can go in, and some of them are JTACs also, but most of them are like, special operations, like air traffic controller. That would be handy for that. You don't normally in the Marine Corps get from what I've seen, a higher level like training or understanding of, I don't know, the bigger picture of air operations until you get up into that, like, I don't know, brigade chief or S3, someone higher up in the, I don't know, the chain of command, I guess, for the air side.
Yeah.
It's not something your tactical level, like battalion level JTACs and stuff are really dealing with. You're talking division, regimental level air operations and stuff where they're routing aircraft. And so, yeah, it's definitely, if you've never been exposed to it, it's it's definitely a steep learning curve there, having all that air traffic, trying to figure out, if you've never routed more than 1 or 2 aircraft at a time, where am I going to stack these people? Where am I putting them at in the airspace to keep them safe, to make sure that whatever their mission's doing, like you said, you have medevacs coming in and stuff like that. All that has to be coordinated and timed. That's what I'm saying. That's what doing the whole JTAC gig is super stressful and stuff. So when you decided to join though, did you go straight for ANGLICO, artillery officer, or were you looking to do anything else? Like, what made you decide to go in the reserves and become an artillery officer?
Well, let's see. I was trying to go active. This was like 2010, and it was during a shrinkage. So like the Corps was contracting in size a little bit. So like each office had like 1 seat for an officer candidate to go to a school kind of thing. And, my office in Nashville, we had like 20 candidates, and I went up for a board, and I didn't get, I went to a good college. I had a great GPA. I had a job, clean nose. However, my run time was like 21 minutes and 30 seconds. And so I know I still am I've definitely gotten slower anyway, but like at the time, if you didn't have a 300, you're going to be waiting for years to get in until like, there was a surge. Like, I know that sounds trite, but that's how it was. Like, they're like, dude, you can go reserve if we can get you in, but if you want an active contract, you got to have a 300. And I was like, I'm like 6'4". I was probably like 220 pounds at the time. I'm a big guy. I lift. I could run decently for my size, but like, I wasn't going to drop 3 minutes.
No way.
I was like, I could get in, and then they tell you like, well, if you go to reserve, you can go active anytime, blah blah blah, and you're young and stupid. You're like, yeah, cool, I'll just do that. So I was like, okay, I'll go reserve, get in. So I did OCS, TBS, and then I ended up, Artie was my first choice for MOS. We just had like a cool artillery guy come to TBS and like give us the spiel about how great it was, and I drank the Kool-Aid. And I lived in Nashville. There was a Chattanooga, Mike Battery. Yep. So there was a 2 hours away, 2.5 hours, there was a unit. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So it was really between grunt. There was another like a low Middle Tennessee grunt unit, and then there was Artie in Chattanooga, and I think there was like combat engineers somewhere in Tennessee, maybe Memphis or Knoxville, I can't remember, but did Arty. So I was at Mike Battery for a few years, and then was at ITX one year, and then my battalion and so I was on a fifth team with I think it was Bravo 123 doing ITX. So I was like the FO on this fifth team. Pretty cush job. We had a JTAC attached, so 123 didn't have enough JTACs, so they borrowed them from, I think, 3rd ANGLICO. Mm-hmm. So we had this dude coming up. He's in like soft armor, and like headset and all this cool guy gear. And he's like, I'm the JTAC for the, for the fist or whatever. And we got to meet him. Cool dude. He was a grunt, went Arty, and he's like, dude, you should definitely go to ANGLICO. He's like, you got to get out of Arty. He's like, it's way better. It's way more fun. And then like the next day I had a meeting with my battalion XO, and he's like, Trandahl, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I was thinking about going to ANGLICO. and he's like, okay. He's like, but I got some plans for you when you come back. You can go there for a couple years, but remember, you're always going to be a division Marine. And if you come back with unblocked boots, just remember you're a division Marine or some speech. And I'm like,
hater.
I'm like, yes, sir, roger that, sir. And anyway, so I was still am, at 4th. I got there in like 2015. So kind of overstayed my welcome a little bit. Usually for O's, they want you to like 3 years and move around. In the reserves, there's a little more leeway. Yeah. Especially in the JTAC community. Like,
I was going to ask that. So in the reserves, you go to an artillery battery in the reserves. What's kind of the op tempo for that? Like, how do you? In active duty, if you're an artillery battery, you're going to the field every month. Usually at least a week every month, if not more. We used to when I was at 210, we would go to the field every month for a week, and then 2 times a year we would do Fort Bragg, which was a month long, so 2 month-long field ops. And then on top of that, if we were so lucky, we would go out and support an ITX. So then we would go out to 29 Palms for another month. So that's a lot of time in the field, and that's a lot of time training and stuff like that. So what's that in comparison on the reserve side? How does that look?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably 4 battery level Fire X's in a year, and then your AT is going to be all in the field. It'll be a regimental shoot, or you'll do an ITX, and but it's so there's only typically 11 or 12, probably 11 months a year you're going to drill, because they try to rack it. You get so many drills per year mandated that you have to do. I think it's 48. So like a drill is there's 2 drills in a day. So you get 24 calendar days plus 14 days of AT in a regular Marine Corps Reserve unit. And so some of those drills have to be spent on like admin and like don't kill yourself class and don't rape people class and like all those just basic like PFD, CFD, all that jazz. Yeah. And then like so they try to rack and stack where they make the field drills long. You might be 5 days, like Monday through or like Thursday through Monday in the field. So that's the weekend. Mm-hmm. But it's about probably 4 times a year in Arty, and then plus the ATs, you're in the field the whole time for that.
When you guys do annual training, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks in the summertime. Yeah. Do you try to attach to a active unit that's out training also, or is it completely just you guys independent doing your own thing?
No, usually it's an exercise. So like as Arty, I think I did 3 or 4 ATs. One was like the whole battalion went out for a shoot in Fort Drum. One was a regimental Fire X in Fort Sill. One was an ITX. And maybe those are the only 3 I did with them. So they were all they weren't battery level events. They were at least battalion. Yeah.
So you're still going to the field. You're still training. It probably still affects your personal life a little bit, having to shift stuff around to meet training requirements and stuff. How does that? What's like the realistic impact on people that are trying to create civilian careers? You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of guys going to the reserve thinking like, hey, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, I'll just finish out. I did 4 years of active or whatever, and I'll just finish out in the reserves and just do whatever I want.
Yeah, I think at a unit like a battery, at least when I was at one, way more manageable.
Yeah.
So like it's manageable. I mean, it's at somewhere there, call it 24 days plus 14. That's what, 38 days a year chopped up over 12 months. I mean, it's a pain. Like, and there's travel days, and depending where you live, like it's not, you don't just sign up willy nilly, but it's like having a second job, and there's always like group chats and like crap you gotta like fill out and upload that they needed yesterday for your cyber certificate or whatever.
Your MarineNet cyber awareness certificate.
There's always some urgent thing that you have to drop everything and do. It seems like, which is
tell me
hilarious.
about the purple dragon. Get out of here. Yeah.
But actually, the battery was cake compared to ANGLICO. Like at ANGLICO, you've got your regular drills plus an AT, call that 38 days. Then you've got at least 2 5-day cast shoots a year. So that's 10 more days. And if you're a jumper, you got to stay jump qual. So you'll come to drill a day early or late, or 2 days early or 2 days late. And there's always the need for more training. And like, it's much more of or it was when OEF and Middle East stuff was really going on. Like, I mean, you're truly there as much as you want to be, it seems like. Like there's way more funding, at least from my perspective. Like there's just opportunity after opportunity, and that we run like, seems like 15 ATs a year. You don't have to do, you're supposed to do one, but you can do pretty much as much as you want. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it truly is, it's way different than a battery. Like the level of opportunity, funding, and commitment. So that's definitely been a step up there, especially if you're staff or O. Like, it's every job matters, and like the new guys, like the younger guys, they can just show up and do their job. But especially if you become a JFO or a JTAC, like you gotta stay current and go to these shoots and travel wherever you know what I mean? So you got like a gear lock. I live in Nashville. I have a gear locker in Florida. Hey, there's a shoot in Fort Dix. So it's like, okay, can somebody grab my stuff? Here's my combo. Meet me. You know what I mean? It's always like last minute. Seems like a lot of like last minute stuff, wheeling and dealing. But it's
That's
a little.
The way it
depends
works.
on your unit. Yeah, I would say to answer the question, I think it depends on the unit. I've only been at 2. 1 that was very manageable. 1 it's less manageable. But
if you can come and go basically as much as you want at 4th ANGLICO or at ANGLICO Reserves, is it possible to work enough to where that is your job? Like where you're kind of on active orders, but you're still a reservist, like enough time where that, how does that work?
I would say, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's that much. Depends on your cost of living and your lifestyle. But there's like, because there's, in addition to like the training and the currencies you have to keep up, there's also opportunities like funeral details or like toys for tots. So like a lot of times like lance corporals or younger guys, like, hey, if anybody needs some extra money or like if they're local especially, they can come in and get a bunch of points toward retirement and drill pay for doing these like just regular events, which was something completely separate. Again, I'm not a spokesperson for the reserves. I'm kind of like, I'd probably put my foot in my mouth here, and somebody's gonna be like, "You're an idiot."
He's
but
completely wrong.
Correct
them in the YouTube comments.
Well, but there's tons of schools available at it, like at the battery. Like you'd be lucky to go to like IROC, like intermediate radio operator course, and like at art, I feel like at the ANGLICOs, you got JFO, TACP, Jump, Mountain Leaders, Urban Leaders. Like you got all these schools that are available. Mm-hmm. But what I tell my guys, you got to first just show up, be good at your job, want to be here. Like everybody wants to do cool, sexy stuff, but if you can't program 152, then it's like you're not going to go into any school. Like you have to do what you're paid and trained to
job,
do. And then do that, and everybody will be happy, and then we can send you to get somewhere else. But,
100%.
But I don't know if you could make a living off of it. I don't know if there's that much, because most the guys for whom there is that much training are going to be your JTACs and JFOs, and those guys are typically a little bit older, who typically have maybe kids or a wife and advanced civilian careers where they're not, in most I don't think we have any local JTACs, maybe like one or two, like almost all of them fly in from all over the country. So, I think we have maybe 3 or 4. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if you could do it like full time. There are different types of, you can get on orders, like, hey, if the staff, there's like an active duty staff at reserve units called INI, inspector instructor. It's like 10 people, and sometimes they need augments, so you can get orders for like 1, 2, 3, 6 months, or there's, if you ask, you'd be, like anything in life, there are opportunities. They're not always advertised, but there seems to be. I'm always hearing of some dude been on, oh yeah, what are you doing? Oh, I did this IMADET for 12 months and I'm just coming back. Or it's like, there's just so much going on that's not, you don't see on a billboard.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I've always said you gotta, people have to kind of shape their own destiny a little bit, ask the questions. No one cares about your career as much as you do. So it's like, if it's something you want to do, then you got to ask that question. Those schools are definitely available for the battery, but the priority is not there. And I remember being, again, at 210 and trying to convince my ops chief why we should send one of my forward observers to Summer Mountain Leaders course. And I was like, dude, the thing on active duty is at the battery or at the battalion, they don't care about the observers so much because they're just there to facilitate training. Because the observers aren't deploying with the battery or the battalion. They're going to deploy with the infantry unit. So then you go to the infantry unit and you're an attachment, and they're not going to send you to any schools. Yeah. So it's always like, it's always like fighting to send guys to any schools beyond the basic ones, or they just want to send you to like, a FATIDS operator course and stuff because they see that as being a valuable tool within the battalion. But any outside schools, not so much. At ANGLICO, the funding is there. I think the people that run it and kind of had an impact from ANGLICO understand that the mission is different and that they're working with different people. Like you guys worked with Georgians. There's guys that went over and worked with SF guys. There's guys that have, my old team, the deployment after my deployment with my team, they went and worked with SEALs in Iraq. That's just, you don't know who you're going to get called up to go support. So it makes more sense to give a unit like that more funding. We had so much ammo, I don't think they ever really shot their allotment in a year because there was just a ridiculous amount of ammo and half the teams were deployed. So it was like, the 50 people that are here aren't going to shoot 60,000 rounds.
Dump back.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, man. The opportunities are definitely different between the two. I do like that you pointed out, though, that people shouldn't even try to ask for schools and stuff until they know their own job. Like you said, if you're a radio operator and you can't program every radio that we use, if you don't know how to use the SKL or any of that stuff, like, no, you're not going to Mountain Com. No, you're not going to whatever. Like, learn how to program the fucking radio. That's your job, man. Yeah. And if I have to do it for you, then you're worthless. You're just a strap hanger I don't need here. So, yeah, it is an interesting thing. So let's talk about when 4th ANGLICO or reserves in general get ready to deploy. What does that look like for you? Because you guys get activated and then you do your pre-deployment workup. But it's not like me when I'm at Camp Pendleton or at Camp Lejeune and they're like, hey, you're going on deployment, and it's like, okay, and nothing really changes too much. I mean, the training tempo kind of picks up and everything, but I don't have to move anywhere. I don't have to go anywhere. You have people coming in from all over the country to come work at 4th ANGLICO. So how does that work for those guys when you get activated?
Well, so we got like basically a warno that there was a request for forces to support the GDP, the Georgia Deployment Program, from our unit. They wanted changed 100 times, like 13 guys, no, they tell you like what rank, what MOS, what capability, in like some hard to read naval format, gen text, whatever, and you're like, okay. So, you start getting the calls like, hey, we need no IC, we need this. At first, they try to field it to people who want to go, because we, accompany roughly 200 people, and they're involuntary orders. However, they're not going to send, if someone just had a kid, okay, like we don't have to send this guy right now. So anyway, they kind of get feelers for like who's trying to go, and there's like a core group of meat eaters who are always like, they're the guys who have gone like 4 or 5 times, not from 4th Anglico. And so anyway, they kind of pieced together a team based on availability and the requirements. And then, so that for us, that came in like, I think November. And then we had a few months to get our stuff together. And then we mobilized, I think it was like May 1st. So we had like probably 5 months notice, something like that, that it was happening. So, and all the stuff in the DoD, everybody knows, it's all kind of like, maybe, maybe not, like maybe this is going to I have orders, but that doesn't mean anything. Are they going to get funded? Is the mission going to change? Should I sell my house? Should I move? Should I sell my car? Should I quit my job? So you've got guys trying to juggle these, yeah, you're told, you tell a 22-year-old kid like, hey man, you're going on deployment, we're leaving in May. And it's like, they start making plans. And like, a lot of times, like several times deployments, they pop up and then they get canceled. Guys are getting tattoos, and the next thing you know, they're not going on deployment. So it's hilarious. But I mean, it sucks, but it's just nature of the beast in the Marine Corps and DoD in general. Like, it's a dynamic environment. So this one, it went all the way through. May comes around. We all do like an annual training event. So we burn our AT first, and we go to, we went to Lejeune. There's a little unit there called DPC, Deployment Processing Command, I believe. DPC RSU, Deployment Processing Command Reserve Support Unit. So you attach to them, they run you through gas chamber and like all the basic like tier 1 or whatever training requirements to get you like legal, give you all the briefs. You shoot table 1, table 2 rifle, pistol, make sure everybody's GTCCs work, just kind of all like these, do you have a pulse, just like standard Marine Corps.
So you have to go through like all the medical stuff too, like everyone gets checked at dental and all that. So all the administrative stuff, you're checking all those boxes.
So that's 2 weeks of fun at the very beginning. And then once that happens, then so 4th Anglico is not like a part of I put in my mouth. You're not deploying as 4th Anglico. We deployed as a unit that belonged to 2 MIG, which replaced MHG. So like Marine Information Group, I think, is MIG. So MIG owns the Anglicos now. So we were with DPC for a little bit, then we attached to 2 MIG, and we conducted our workup as a 2 MIG unit, but we wrote the script ourselves. So me and my chief are just cold calling squadrons, reserving ranges, and we set up like this little East Coast tour. So we would hit we started in like Lejeune, we went to Avon Park, Florida, we went to Navy Dare, we went up to Fort Dix. So we had like 11 dudes, couple SUVs, and we just like travel.
That's awesome.
Like hobos, staying at hotels. It was awesome. It was a great time.
Yeah.
Because you can only travel like so many hours and so many miles a day, and then you have to stop. So we just had to stop in fun cities like Charleston or Savannah.
Charleston's great.
And a lot of good training, but again, you completely write the script yourself, and you get as much out of it as you put into it. So we were with the GLT, and we met them. We were like, hey, good to meet you. This is our plan. This is what we're going to do. And we'll see you guys in Georgia when we go finish up the training over there. So we did CONUS, mostly CAF-centric training to get myself and the other JTAC qualified, and the other guys just training them, just regular, just fixed stuff, mostly fixed level skills. And so we just kind of charted our own course, and then we had to come back to Lejeune at the end to do a few. Like the rest of the GLT went to Virginia and did the Marine Advisor course, but we opted out of that so we could continue doing. We had to get our designation stuff up. Yeah. But anyway, so we trained from May, and I think we went to Germany in September. So we had like 4 months of CONUS training, and then we went to Germany and did an exercise there for like 3 weeks with the Georgians. And then we went to Georgia and waited to deploy to Afghanistan from Georgia. So we got to Afghanistan, I think, in late September. So about, May to September? What's 9 minus 5? 4? Call 4 months workout. And then hit the ground in September.
You guys were one of the probably last GLT rotations through, correct?
Yeah, I think there was one other 4th Anglico unit that went after us, and I believe they were the last. They were Roto 10, we were Roto 8.
How was
I think 10 was last.
How was like the training in Germany and stuff like that? Because at this point, it should have been everything, all the bugs ironed out and stuff? Like, did it feel pretty legit?
I thought it was great. I mean,
yeah.
the real focus of that was to integrate with these Georgians. So there's another unit called the GTT, Georgia Training Team, who stays in Georgia and specifically trains that battalion, that Georgian battalion, in tandem. While the GLT is doing their workup, the GTT is in Georgia getting these guys NATO ready. I don't know what their metrics are, but so the Germany thing is where the GTT delivers the battalion, the GLT shows up, they integrate, and they operate in this like full level scenario for several weeks. Again, it's crawl, walk, run like everything is. But so it was a good exercise. I mean, there wasn't a ton of CAS and, air or fires, but we had a few days of CAS, and it was like force on force type of thing where there's like guys, the Hodge in pajamas are up in the mountains, and like they got so you run an attack on them with like a Lakota, like a simulated Apache, and then the pilot will give you BDA, and you tell the instructor like, hey, pilot says we just got these three dudes, and so they kind of, it's just like a painted scenario with real time feedback on like the bigger events, but it's mostly like patrolling and like going up to houses, doing call outs, getting people to come out, IED reaction to contact, just running through all the scenarios in like a live environment. And there was like hundreds of role players that were like actors that were the village people. It was really like well done. And they were like stay in character all the time. And if you were like mean to them, they would remember the next day and like throw rocks at you. And but if you like gave them candy or something, they would, they'd like be warmer to you and stuff. So, and like there was different towns, each town had a different name, and there was like each one was a mount facility, and like one of them, like they just make up scenarios where like this one's known for an IED manufacturer and they have a cell over here, and so you got to develop, plans to whatever. I don't remember all the missions we did, but it was good. I thought it was good, worthwhile training, and it was especially good to meet that friction working with a foreign force and like so the ANGLICO teams, we would split and patrol with all the different, so basically we had grunt teams, like 5 Marine Corps grunts would it be with a platoon or a company actually. So each company had a advisor team, and then the ANGLICO would augment whatever they would operate. So like the grunts are led by, an 03 captain, and they're, all these like stubborn dudes that want to do things their way and button head to the Georgians. Like, this is so stupid. We should be going, but they're having to learn like their roles to advise and assist, not to be the commander of the company. And it's just like this constant like pissing contest at the beginning, and like, well, we'll see what's going to happen if they do this. They're going to, it's like, okay, well, that's not really productive, man. Like, we got to come up with the best plan we can. And like the human factor of egos and stuff was interesting, but that kind of got ironed out toward the end. Mostly people just stopped caring. They're like, whatever, I don't care.
Just let them do their thing. When you actually got to Afghanistan, was the AO owned by the Georgians? Because I know a lot of times that's how it works. It's the Georgian commander's decision what happens.
Yeah, I think. Well, the AO was owned by that task force warrior at that point, or whatever. That task force rotates, but a U.S.-led task force, which has the Georgian battalion under it. So at the end of the day, it's that Army 05 who's calling all the shots. And, but the Georgian battalion commander, the GLT is attached to them. Like, it's not the GLT commander's like plan. Like, at the end of the day, he's also enabling that battalion to operate and do what they need to do. So it was a weird relationship because like the Marine Corps GLT has the assets and the expertise and the access to aircraft and mortars and whatever. However, the Georgians are the ones like planning the stuff, and like, but they can't even go to the secret meetings because, they don't have, or they can only go to like the NATO clearance type meetings, and they can't even get into like really red out. So it's kind of like, it's a weird situation. Like, this doesn't make a ton of sense, but
that's the military.
This is the construct that we're working with. Yeah, so
it sounds like yours is a little different, probably because you're around Bagram and stuff. I know when I had Andrew DeMauro on and Dustin Reel on, and they were both on GLTs, And where they were at, I can't remember exactly where they were at. I think it was not Shikvani, Shergazi is where they were at. The GLT commander, that was his battle space, and he's the one that could clear fires. Like, he could approve, bomb drops and stuff like that. So in your case, that wasn't the case, right? It went up to the Army lieutenant colonel.
Yeah, this was later in the war,
Yeah,
towards
for sure.
the end, pretty risk averse. And honestly, if it was a self-defense, obviously, hey, do what you need to do. But when it came to most of the strikes, it was actually 1-star approval. So
really?
I would have to, so the combat commander Bagram Airfield would have to get woken up and drug over. He could delegate that strike authority to the task force commander, which he did with one commander, and he did not with the guy who ripped out with him for various reasons of competence. But it was not, the Georgians, no way would they have any authority on any of that. And even so I was the ANGLICO OIC, but the GLT OIC, I mean, he was not making those decisions. It was at least the colonel who was running the task force.
Yeah. You said your guys were split. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, if he had the authority, he could make that call.
You said you guys were split up, and half the time you're working in the COC, the command center, and half the time you guys are on patrol. When you guys were out doing patrols and stuff, what did the average patrol look like? What was the mission when you were out there? What kind of interactions did you have with the people? Did you run into enemy fighters very often, if at all?
Patrols were typically in the period of darkness. The mission was Bagram gets shot at a lot, by rockets. I mean, we probably had, I think, close to, I don't remember if it was 50 or 60 attacks while we were there. Just, sometimes just one pot shot, and, the C-wit, some weapon system will fire and try to fragment the rocket, and it'll wound a few people or damage a building or whatever. But these sirens will go off, incoming, and like I said earlier, there's tons of aircraft personnel. I mean, there's a Pizza Hut there. It's not this fob where you're peeking out behind sandbags anymore. It's like a small city.
Bagram's huge, yeah.
It's an airport. It's basically a glorified airport, and so they want to keep that safe. So that's a major threat to the missions of Bagram is making sure those planes don't get blown up. So those rockets would typically come either right before dawn or right after dusk. So the patrols would typically be right in that window. And the point is to kill these guys when they shoot rockets, whether that's scaring them from a patrol, getting them after the fact, using aircraft once we find the point of origin site, using mortars, train denial, whatever it takes. That was one big thing the commander wanted to do. So that was really the focus of the patrols, of stop us from getting attacked. And they were typically mounted. It would be there would be a Marine Corps grunt truck, an ANGLICO truck, and 2 or 3 Georgian trucks. And then there'd be EOD and then RCP, Route Clearance Platoon. So they were, it's almost like a convoy, man. It was probably 8 trucks. And again, it was pretty you could tell those types of routes had been done for a long time. It's just in the Georgians, there's only a few battalions that they just continually recycle into this mission. And the commander of our Georgian battalion is yes, I did this 3 years ago before as company commander. I know we will do this Route Bottle to Route Johnson and come up this way. It's okay, let's not be predictable or anything. But so there's a little bit of ossification that happens, and if you've done something before, let's just do that again, and that you're constantly combating that mentality with hard target and survivability. Some people are, but anyway, so we go on patrol typically at night. They're usually about 4 or 5 hours. And then you might get a point of interest to go check out, and dismount, go check out an area. You get pot shots every now and then, but it wasn't I don't think we had any, 90% of the time you're not, it's pretty boring. Yeah. And, you might find an IED, mark it, whatever. I mean, just random normal stuff that happens. But also part of that mission to deny enemy freedom of movement was we would do terrain denials from the COC. So we would shoot mortars or loom or get we were asked the commander, like, hey, can we just do gun runs with the Apaches? Because like we'd get all this extra, what was the word, like we call it free cast. Like when Viper, or like 16s or Apaches are coming back into land, they would just check in with us. Our call sign was Grinder because we thought it was funny, and it was one of the approved call signs. So we did Grinder Air.
There you go.
So they'd check in with Grinder. We would, look at historical points of interest, and they let us start doing like just gun runs on poos. We're just happy. Hey, free controls. This is awesome. And eventually they released this memo. It's called a JSIF, and they're like, hey, GBU 38s and 12s are now authorized for terrain denial missions. And I saw that, and I immediately sent it to the commander. I'm like, hey, sir, it looks like we can turn things up a bit. You want to do it? He's like, let's do it tonight. And I'm like, yes. So we like get dimpies for all the poos we want to hit, and we're just dropping 38s. It was awesome. Like, it was just like it was free bombs to drop in support of a mission. But I guess they just had like an excess. They were trying to kind of slim down the inventory. Eventually that had to stop a few weeks later once we started kind of Winchestering a supply house, I guess.
That's crazy, because GBU 38s were definitely in low supply, like military wide, I think, for a little bit.
Yeah, so they like would turn them on and off. Like you get this publication saying like, okay, they're good, they're not. I mean, terrain denials are like a super high priority, and we had mortars too. And
was it effective, do you think? There was terrain denial. So for people that don't know what you're talking about, terrain denial, DIMPs are the desired mean point of impact of the target, and then the POO is the point of origin. Did attacking those spots have like any kind of positive effect or any effect at all?
Yeah, I think I might be looking back with rose-tinted glasses and a bit of bias, but the PowerPoints that would get briefed to the boss would call them effective and that they're dropping in frequency. So we would target these known points where they would shoot from and constantly have like ISR assets overhead scanning them, trying to find these guys. And then they started once we started killing them, because we would get most of them, like they would shoot. If we happened to have an aircraft on station, we could get them. If we didn't, by the time we got one rerouted, they were gone.
Yeah.
So we started getting lucky a few times where we just happened to have a Viper, 2 minutes away, or like an F-16 or something, and we dropped some 54s or AGRs on them, and those are good days. But they started getting smart and using like delayed fuses on the rockets, so there'd be a POO, but nobody would be there.
Yeah.
And like a gathering, maybe a click or two away, it's just like a bunch of white hot bodies you're looking at in the sensor, and you don't have positive ID, or you didn't prove a hostile act. Their TTPs changed. 4 stars have changed. It's kind of a back and forth of like cat and mouse. Like they try to kill us, we don't want to die, so we try to kill them. They don't want to die, so they change how they try to kill us.
Yeah.
It's just that forever until you leave the country.
So I don't know. And unfortunately, before you guys left country, you did lose a few guys in a car bomb attack. Was that something that was a threat before that? Suicide bombers, car bombers, anything like?
Those were a known threat, but it had been a known threat for 7 months, and it's like, hey, Bolo, be on the lookout for a white pickup. It's like, oh, okay. There's only 1 million of those out here.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, it's hard to. If it's always a threat, it becomes hard to take seriously. And if the best you can give me is like a yellow sedan or a white truck, it's like, come on, man. Like, which one?
That's like saying look out for the trash piles because it could be an IED. It's like, okay.
So that was a mission where like a team had to escort a civilian to a food processing plant or something in the ground, a few 10 miles away from the ground defense area. And on the way back, the convoys, they're like a mile from the entry control point of the base, I think on the north side. And there's like a car staged like on this little side access road. And as the convoy passes, what we all thought is they specifically targeted the Marine vehicle and just, it was a VBIED. You know, I don't remember the tonnage of HME or homemade explosive they had, but it destroyed the Max Pro, which is like a huge up-armored truck with like 6 wheels. And I mean, it's just it's a beast. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the guy, I mean, it was definitely calculated. It wasn't like an opportunity thing. Like, but it was a weird little kind of side mission where we're going to, you know, to keep the food safe at the base, some guy has to go check it, the source, and then he has to be escorted. So like, I was like, hey, team 4 is going to, you know, escort this dude at this time, and just in standard patrol, you know. This was in the day, which was rare for us. We did most of the stuff at night. But yeah, it was just we did stuff like that now and then, but it was regular patrol. Like, it wasn't anything super crazy. And we did know about those threats, but not that threat, that time, that
not
day,
specific,
that car, you know.
Yeah, that's like when they told us to, you know, in country, they're like, hey, there's going to, you know, look out for yellow jugs. All the IEDs are in yellow jugs. It's like, dude, there's yellow jugs everywhere. That's their cooking oil. And then when they're done using it for cooking oil, they use it for water or they use it for whatever. Like, you know, you just can't, like you said, if everything's a threat, then it no longer becomes a threat. You're just like, whatever, man. Like, I can't do anything about this. That's pretty wild, though, that they had a vehicle set up, you know, just kind of ready to go like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he drove, if I recall, I mean, it's probably maybe like 100 or 200 yards at most, like from stage to just bang. And I remember I was walking, I was going to eat chow, as we call it in the Marine Corps. I try to stay away from that jargon when I can, but I see this billow of smoke popping up from like, you know, about a mile away, and I hear on my radio, JTAC to the BDOC, and I'm like, oh shit, you know. So I just sprint over there, and we see you know, we got a feed on it, looking at it, can't get radios with them, and it's like, what just happened? So we spin up QRF. That was my week for the COC, so I sent, you know, our other team of 3 joins the QRF because we had to have a JTAC out, and I'm in the COC, and we are just reaping aircraft from all over the all over the combined joint operating area, like 20 high of like platforms. I still don't even know what they do, you know, just like, who are you? What do you have? But that became a madhouse because we sent QRF out there, and then there was, they got into it on the ground with fighters. So that became like they went to go recover the vehicle and the guys, and it became like this all night drawn out, what the hell is going on, you know, firefight, and we got the medevac birds out there, and it was a mess, man. It was a crazy night for sure. And you get names over the radio of like what happened, or, you know, who's not accounted for, you know. And I just remember writing these names down, and like, it was surreal and sobering when, but yeah, I mean, it was a bad night, but it really, and it sucks. It was like right at the end. We were like a couple weeks away, and like we were ripping out like the next week type of thing, you know. And it was just like, of course, this happens right at the end. But
so, you know, you're talking about during the recovery, it was like an all-night process. Like, what were you seeing? Was it a mass group of fighters, or were they just kind of picking at the guys that were at the site throughout the night? Or can you kind of go into any of that?
There's different accounts. Guys on the ground saw certain things and swear to it. And from my view, I saw certain things, and I didn't see certain things. So we had, you know, other JTACs out there. I sourced him some Apaches, give them to him, and he does some gun runs. I've got Hog, I got some A10s where I'm just running shows of force, just low and continuous right over, trying to spread people out. And we had some F-16s on, and like, so I get some Apaches a little bit later in the night, and there's PID, my Target Engagement Authority, which is my the commander, the one-star general. At this point, everybody's in the room. Like the COC becomes packed with humans. Everybody, you got lawyers and doctors and
everybody that wants to just come in and watch. I hate that.
Yeah, and I'm talking to like 40 airplanes and like, I'm like, it was nuts. But so, you know, we're looking at these guys, see them stashing some weapons, and the general's like, those are good targets. And he's like, because I mean, I've got a 9-line ready. I've already briefed the bird. I've got him at a good like attack angle, and we're ready to go. Because we've been watching these guys. I didn't see him shoot a weapon or anything, but the intel and the boss are like, yeah, prosecute. So, I mean, we ran some attacks on that crew, but I never saw him shoot type of deal. But so it was weird because we got like 1,000 feeds up, and you can't manage them all at the same time, and you're getting reporting from the ground, and so it becomes really chaotic in terms of information flow, what to focus on. You're just triaging what needs to happen right now, who needs to know it, why does it need to happen. But yeah, they were in a firefight on the ground for an extended period of time, and then they had to, like, they couldn't recover the bodies because the fire was so bad. Like, all the gas in the Max Pro and the gas cans on the back were obviously in flames, and they didn't burn out for hours. And they used, like, I think over 20 fire extinguishers trying to get them out, and it didn't put a dent in it. This thing just kept going, and they weren't going to leave it there. So they just kind of hunkered down, and that kind of caused a scene. And so it just became and then it was too hot to open the doors after that thing had been burning for hours. So had to get like Afghan fire out there in the middle of all this to like spray it down. And it was just, you know, just a shit show. But yeah, they took contact, returned fire on the deck, and then we prosecuted targets from the COC forum, and then we gave them some air, and they did some gun runs on what they were seeing as well.
In the moment, you know, you said you were like writing down the zap numbers or the kill numbers or the names. I'm not sure what you were getting, but in the moment, were you able to like process what was going on, you know, or was it something you were just kind of doing your job?
I mean, it happened so slow and so fast. Like, it was a long night, but it was like your adrenaline is just open choke.
Yeah.
Blood's going, and it's like, okay, yeah, you go into job mode. Like, feelings don't matter. There's like 30 aircraft in the sky. Got dudes on the ground that need help. What can we do? And let's start doing those things. So we would just start piecemealing at a time. Like, okay, get these guys out of the way. Bring this medevac in here, you know, or call the medevac first. We give them the medevac from the COC, send them, transfer them over to my JTAC on the ground. Start running shows of forest, because that was something we got at the TTP. We had a lot of downed like drones, and then like the scavengers would come and try to strip the parts. So you do shows of forest, they all run away, and they start slowly coming back. You do another one. So that was like a TTP we started doing, and it worked pretty well just to keep people away, at least in those scenarios. But yeah, man, it just became like prioritize and execute. Like, how can we help? Do it. Okay, and just stop thinking, stop feeling, just execute what has to happen, and it went. I hate to say it went well, but I mean, we got a lot of work done and coordination done in that pretty bad environment. But there's like a moment or two you're just like, dang. But
it's just exactly what we were talking about at the beginning about how some guys just can't do the job, you know, because it's so stressful. And there's, like you said, you have all this information just incoming, and that priorities of work. What is the most important thing that I need to get done right now? What is that? Get it done. Where is everybody at? You know, like trying to figure out what's actually going on. And then, like you said, in that kind of situation, I'm sure, especially towards the latter part of the war where there weren't as many ground forces, if you call out like a TIC or, you know, troops in contact or something like that, you're going to get stacked with a shit ton of air, just like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you have to be a pro, you know, when you like understand like the JTAC world and stuff like that. You have to come into it with like a a mindset where I don't know what I'm. That's why when I say I get nervous, I would get nervous every time I got on the radio. It's not. It's because it's like you got to understand the seriousness of what's happening and why it's important, especially in training. That OP cast becomes very like, okay, let's get my control. So I got my check in the box and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But although you can never train for a scenario like what you went through, fully understand that, you got to at least stress people to a point where you can see how they can handle something similar to that. That's just I can't imagine like that stress of, I didn't lose in my deployments. We lost a couple guys on my 3-6 deployment, but they were with a different battalion that was attached to us. I never personally lost anyone while I was in country that I knew. I know Jason Kalo was one of the guys from 10th Marines that was killed, but he was in country and I wasn't. So I can't imagine what that was like in the moment, knowing that these are your own dudes and trying to get all that work done, man. I mean, I don't know. So shout out to you guys for like working through that and doing what you have to do, because that's a tough task to undertake,
Yeah, I never really thought about it like that, but yeah, it was rough. Like I said, there were 60 of us, and these are guys we patrolled with every week and worked out with, did the work up with, and it's a big.
Did it feel? Was it
I'm doing this.
Was it satisfying for you to like get a control, like when all that was happening, like to kind of get maybe punch back a little bit?
Like, oh, for sure, like definitely, like it's like. Definitely. I mean, you don't like to say it, but I mean, it is. So, like these dudes just took 3 souls that I, knew and loved from this earth, and like they're not walking away. Like we're gonna get these guys, and it was. It's not like an ultimately satisfying gesture, and doesn't make anything really better in the end. But in the moment, it's like, hey, at least I didn't get away, type of thing. But
yeah,
I don't think it's a weird thing, but yeah, definitely in the moment you're like, good, like I can rest a little bit easier tonight. But still, it doesn't change what happened, which is kind of the shitty part. But
how did this? Was this your only deployment? Your first deployment, right?
Yep.
How did this kind of change your mentality of the Marine Corps, or maybe the war in Afghanistan, or just deploying in general?
Good question. Didn't really change it. The Marine Corps, I mean, it's pretty much what I expected. My mentality, like the war in Afghanistan, I mean, when that happened, it was like, those numbers of like I don't know what the numbers are up to now, 3,000 or 4,000 service members killed or so in Afghanistan in the last 20 years. Like now a couple of those numbers mean a little bit more to me, and it's like, damn, like there's been that times over 1,000 times, like that event has happened, and those sons and fathers have been taken, and it's sobering. And I actually just saw the news. I was reading it the other day, like U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan overnight, and I'm reading this article and seeing pictures of Bagram, the base we were defending, like overrun, like they cut the electricity, sabotaged all the trucks, got all the aircraft out of there, and now like the locals have taken over.
Yeah.
And it's like, we just spent trillions of dollars, 2 decades of dudes and women's careers and time away from their families, probably just millions of pounds of ordnance, all this time, blood, and treasure. It sounds cliche, but I mean,
that's it though.
You have spent, and it's like, we're gone. And I was just like, whoa, like, what was that about? But the other answer is like, what's the answer? Stay there forever? Like, so I'm having like this emotional reaction to the news. Like, usually I try to analyze things and be rational, weigh both sides, but I was at a loss for words reading these articles. Like, oh my God, it's over, Yeah. So I was actually talking to somebody I knew who was married to a Vietnam vet, and she's like, that's how a lot of guys felt after Nam. Like, it's over, and it's like, whoa.
What was it all for? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I can make a case for either way. You know, you can rationally argue just war. You can rationally argue it was a waste of time and money, and we shouldn't be, like, you can politicize and make a pretty quick argument on either side of the coin you want to. I'm not really interested in, I don't have super strong feelings on.
So yeah, sorry, man. We had some kind of connection failure there. I don't know what happened, but Afghanistan. You know, before we started the interview, I saw that Herat had fallen, which is like the second or third largest city in Afghanistan. So, you know, what was it all for? Who knows, man. It's just, it is what it is. But I can't. It's hard to justify staying there, and I feel for the Afghan people and stuff like that, but having been an Afghan National Army advisor, you see the level of corruption. You know, you get a small peek of the corruption at the small level, and you know it goes all the way up to the highest levels of the government. And when it's that bad, when you have people that you have commanders, the Afghan commanders get their jobs because their parents are rich, they buy their command or whatever. You have then they have soldiers on their rolls that aren't actually there. You know, these ghost soldiers that are on the rolls just so that they can collect that pay that they're supposed to be getting. You know, they're stealing the fuel and selling it. They're selling their gear. When they get uniforms, they're selling it. You know, and it's like, it sucks. It sucks that it is what it is, man. I can't say we can't. I mean, what else can we do? 20 years, like you said, 20 years of people, of money, of time spent there trying to kind of show them a better way than what they're seeing now, you know? And it's kind of weird. The Taliban seems like they're trying to have a nicer, gentler approach, at least right now. I read an article yesterday where they followed around a Taliban commander and stuff. And I don't know, you know, they're talking about having women where you have to have a male escort at the bazaar, and, you know, you can get beaten for wearing the wrong clothes and stuff like that. It's back to that, like, strict Islamic kind of law stuff. And it sucks for those people, but it's like, at the same time, the alternative was helping, you know, it was like trying to learn how to govern yourself and be like a free country, but they just, I don't know. It just never happened. So it's kind of tough to see it happen, see these cities fall and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, what more can we do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe another 20 years, you know, it's like, probably not the right answer. I don't know what it sounds like nobody knows what the right answer is, or else we'd be doing that. So maybe the best answer we had was to just stop. I mean, I don't know. Those aren't the decisions I make. I can just Monday morning quarterback them, but what I can, I mean, the impact of the war and on people's lives, on our mentality as a country, like, that's interesting to me. And especially on the person, I mean, personally, you know, my experience there, like, the fragility of life became like a real, I mean, I had a moment when I was at Mike Battery, there was a shooting at that unit, and my ops chief was killed. My battery gunner was killed by just like a homegrown terrorist in Chattanooga who rammed a gate and went on a shooting spree and killed 4 Marines and a sailor. And also a sobering day, you know, and then this happened, and it was just like, that's honestly a major reason why I'm sitting in this building right now. Is like, I wanted to do a brewery later in life, like when I was retired, whatever that meant. But just, I realized, like, man, life is short. Like, you are not guaranteed tomorrow, and you might as well live today. Like, you might as well just regret failing rather than regret leaving something on the table. And I mean, because once after, like, I'm not going to die doing this. Like, what's the real risk? Reputational damage if I fail, maybe some financial catastrophe that hopefully I can recover from. But worst case, I'll go work at Starbucks, man. I'll figure it out. Like, there's money to be made somewhere in this country. Like, the risk is, I mean, so I just get out this mentality that's like, this is not going to, there's, A, dumber people have done harder things. And B, I probably am not going to die doing this. Yeah. And like, so, and I want to do it. So like, I'm going to do it. And it sounds really kind of trite, but like the shortness and fragility of life, I think once you grasp that, it's like, that's real,
Yeah, man.
like there's, I don't know what's on the other side, but I know you're no longer here when you stop breathing, and you only get so many spins around the sun, and that's your time, man. So it's like, don't settle for what you don't want to do. Like, I mean, you got to gut through stuff sometimes. There's times in your life where, like for me, for 10 years, doing other jobs and like figuring stuff out, like you can't just read a book and have a true shift in your mentality sometimes. Like sometimes it takes time in the proverbial trenches or literal trenches to like come to realizations. I think experience is the best teacher for a lot of things, but
for sure,
that lesson hit me, and I was just like, that was a major factor of like, hey, I'm going to figure out this thing. So
I think it's funny, like you said, you're like, if I fail, I'll just go work at Starbucks or whatever,
Yeah.
When I decided to get out of the Marine Corps, people were like, dude, you're getting out at 12 years. Like, you're only 8 years to retirement. And I'm like, dude, how many deployments is that in 8 years? Like, how many more? Because I did all 5 of my deployments from 2009 to 2016. So 7 deployments or 5 deployments in that 7-year time span. And I'm like, how, I'm talking about another 8 years. That's more deployments. And right now, the wars were winding down, so it was like MEU deployments and sitting on ship, and that's just the worst thing ever. And I remember telling multiple people, the same thing. Like, man, I know a lot of idiots that are surviving somehow. And if I get out and whatever I try to do doesn't work out, like, I'll go get a fucking shit job and do what I got to do. But I'm not. I would, like you said, don't leave anything on the table. Don't feel like you didn't do something, you didn't try, you didn't want to take the time to try. I don't know, man. It's taking those risks is what kind of makes life worth living and stuff. And having any kind of brush with death or close call, I mean, at least for me, man, it's made me appreciate everything. I enjoy seeing every sunset that I get to watch. I'm lucky enough to live in San Diego, and I have that kind of life where I can go out and watch that stuff. I enjoy the time I get to spend with my kid. Anytime he's not here, I obviously miss him and stuff like that. It's just, you got to get out and enjoy those little things and just kind of, I don't know. That's the after effect of being in the Marines for me, is just kind of taking every day and enjoying it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I'm not always in that frame of mind. I am in my better moments, but for sure. I mean, that deployment and is one of the hardest things I've ever done, like from a stress and just figuring it out thing. But it's also some of the most proud I've ever been of like my team and what we were able to accomplish, literally just making stuff up as we went along. And then it's the same mentality I'm doing here in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know what I don't know until I know it. I heard a quote, experience is the price you pay for not having any. And I love that. It's just like, but yeah, it's an expensive gift. Like, having that mentality, it's not, for me, like, what 8 of my friends had to die for like me to get that lesson. That's what I mean. Like, it's an expensive gift to have that understanding, and but it's changed everything for me. And like, I work harder here than I've ever worked in my life just to get it open. But like, I feel like I would do it for free. Like, I love what I'm doing. I'm just figuring stuff out, grinding away. And like, I haven't even gotten paid. Like, I made my first sale this week, which was crazy. Like, so I made a beer, made a building that I can sell the beer in, got a point of sale system, got it working, got it talking to my bank, passed my health inspection, all these obstacles. And it's like there's so much like dopamine. Like, if you have a goal and a mission and you're making steps on it, like, to me, that's meaning right there. Like, I don't need a Zen Buddha teacher to tell me like what the meaning of life is. Like, I'm living it. Like, that's just that daily struggle and victories and joy and sorrow, just like having something you're going for and you're all in on. There is no drug like that, man. Like, I don't know. I want everybody to just find their dream or their passion and just do it.
Yeah, man.
You got to do everything poorly before you can do it well, right? Like, you don't become a master overnight, but you got to start somewhere, or else you'll just always wonder. then that's not a good way to go.
I saw a quote or a meme or something that was like, if you're too embarrassed to make mistakes as a beginner, then you're never going to make it. You know, you're never going to make it to being a pro or something. It's something along those lines. And I think what, you bring up a really good point that a lot of people probably don't realize is that a lot of businesses start and run off of people just trying to figure it out. There's no set blueprint. It's not like a lot of these business owners are super business savvy, pro, whatever, that just got it figured out and know how all the steps to take. No, man, it's a learning process. And anyone that's ever tried to create something from the ground up knows that. I mean, this podcast started as an audio podcast with 2 microphones, and I'm on just trying to figure it out. Like, oh man, I should probably do YouTube. How do I do video? Well, I thought you just do it with the laptop camera. No, that looks like shit, Or I thought I could use my DSLR camera. Nope, that has a 15-minute limit on doing video. So what did I do? I got online, I researched, I figured it out. I bought a camera and all the stuff to make it happen. And then I was like, how can I make my video better? Well, I'll put in lights. So I bought external lighting, and I'm just figuring it out. I don't know how to, for one thing for me too, that I tried to take advantage of was my GI Bill, because I'm doing this at the same time I was going to school. So I was like, well, I'll go to school it's a journalism and advertising degree. So I got a little bit of both, which helps me shape how I can tell stories, like maybe a better storyteller, but also how can I promote what I'm trying to do and stuff like that. So I tried to use my GI Bill and my education that I was doing at the same time as something that's benefiting the company, benefiting this thing that I'm trying to do and kind of feed off that. So this, for what I guess what I'm getting at is, for all those people out there that are wondering if you could do something like that, you can. You just have to be afraid to step into the unknown and kind of make it work. And it's not going to be as pretty as you thought it'd be, but it'll be pretty fucking exciting, when it works out and stuff.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. That's for sure.
Yeah,
and I think going from 0 to 1 is the hard part. Like, just get something out there, and then go from 1 to 1.1, and then get into 1.2. Like, just, you get better. Like, I had a buddy here I deployed with. He came and visited me during my soft opening last night, and I was like, it's kind of like what I'm doing now is like a type 1 day, mark a target, hit a target. Like, it's pretty easy control. Mm-hmm. Eventually I'll be getting to like the cooler, sexier stuff with what kind of beers I'm making. But right now it's just like, I'm just trying to like, can I trade my sugar water for money with other humans? Mm-hmm. Like, how do the mechanics of that work? Like, legally with the bank? Okay, that happened. Now like, maybe we can make this place look a little better, and make them try a different flavor of beer, whatever. But like, you just gotta start somewhere.
Gotta start somewhere. Yeah.
You never get to 2 if you don't get to 1. So.
And every once in a while, you got to look back and see where you came from. I remember looking at my podcast statistics and being like, oh man, I got a download today. I'm like, oh man, I'm getting 1 download every day. Like, this is crazy. Like, there's at least 1 person every day downloading it. And it's, then it's like, oh man, I'm getting 100 downloads a day. Like, holy crap, that's crazy. I can't believe, and just kind of looking back and seeing where you came from and seeing how it's growing, it's hard to not, how can you not enjoy that? And like, and then I get, your business is not started yet. It's getting ready to. You'll start getting feedback from customers that really appreciate what you're doing and stuff like that. And I'm lucky enough to get the feedback in either messages, DMs on my Instagram, or reviews on Apple Podcasts and stuff like that. And hearing people say like, hey man, this has been a really great episode, or hey man, I'm glad to hear someone else had the same kind of experience. Like, that kind of feedback that makes it worth it, because you're like, man, I'm bringing value to somebody. Like, somebody's really appreciating this. And I don't know, man. So I think it's awesome that you're doing it. Go ahead and, if you want, go ahead and plug your business again. Give us all the details one more time, all your social media and stuff like that, and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, good point. I'm bad at that. Big Trouble Brewing, Gallatin, Tennessee, at Big Trouble Brewing on Instagram. It's just a local neighborhood tap room. If you're ever in Middle Tennessee, come check us out. By the time you hear this, I should be open, God willing, and the creek don't rise. But I've been wrong before. But yeah, come on up. Check me out on Instagram. I'm still not great at posting stuff. I was trying to I didn't want to generate a lot of buzz and then never open. So I've been holding back all my I probably need to get on there and start posting some stuff. People keep telling me I should, but I've been
get into something. If you're not social media savvy, as a tip from somebody that's gotten some training in it at SDSU and stuff and just doing it, get onto a program like Hootsuite or something like that. And I know Hootsuite has a social media marketing course, and it's normally like $100 or something. But I think when I got the certification from them, you could use Honey, the Honey app, and they had a promo code to get it for free.
Oh, nice.
And then if you're not, like I said, if you're not savvy with social media, you go on there and it has like a whole dashboard, and you can do it all from your laptop, and you make your post. Sit down in one day and do posts for the next 2 weeks, and then
cool.
then they're on their own little timeline, and they just post on their own. So think about doing something like that. That's probably a good idea for you if you're not really into that kind of world. But good luck, man. If I find myself in Gallatin, then I'll swing through for sure. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I still have some like more distant family there now, but my family still goes down there occasionally. My mom, we have a family cemetery that's like right on the border between Tennessee and Kentucky, near Gallatin. And so anyways, but yeah, for everyone else, go check his stuff out. Check my stuff out, jkramergraphics.com. My Instagram's @formeractionguys, @jkramergraphics, both of those. And that's it, man. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it a lot. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, for sure, dude. So